Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's city council meeting. If you haven't already done so, please silent your cell phones. City of Anamosa City Council Agenda Regular Session, Monday, September 9th, 2024, 6 p.m. Anamosa Library and Learning Center. 1.0 roll call.
Crump,
Here.
Schaumburg,
Here.
Dan Smith,
Here.
Hay Smith, Tukin, Weimer,
Yes.
All 6 council members are present in chamber. So to pass any motions this evening, it will take a majority for favorable votes. 2.0 Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So typical proceedings for this council meeting is I'll read the agenda item. The presenter or presenters come to the podium, speak for the council on the item. And then I'll open it up afterwards for public comment. At that time, we ask that you come to this podium, state your name and your address of residence, and you will be limited to 5 minutes at that time. You will not be permitted after you step away on that agenda item to return. It's a council meeting of business. This is not a debate this evening. 3.0 consent agenda, review and approve. There's 4 items that I will read off. Council can make a motion that includes consent, which means it takes it before council for a vote of all 4 items, or council can make a motion of any of the items. Item A, minutes from August 26, 2024, regular session. Item B, current bills. Item C, liquor licenses. Item D, noise street closure permit application.
Move to approve consent agenda.
I'll second. Motion by Rich, second by Dan. Council discussion? Is there any public comment on the items? Hearing none from either parties. Penny, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Schaumburg,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Hay Smith, Tukin, Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Consent motion carried. 4.0 public hearings. 4.1 public hearing to approve the rezoning request of the Northland subdivision and the final plat of the Northland subdivision second edition. Item A, mayor opens the public hearing. The public hearing is open. Please come to the podium and state your name, address, if you would care to speak. Jeremiah, have you received any public comment?
I have not.
Also, is there any comments, questions you would like to make at this time? Knowing that there is a agenda item after the public session is closed. Item C, mayor closes the public hearing. The public hearing is now closed. 4.2, resolution 2024-48, approving the final plat of the Northland subdivision second edition. Council, this is where you can still take the opportunity to discuss approval.
This is the property kind of north and west or north central past the new junior high or middle school.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Council, any discussion, comment? Is there any public comment on the agenda? We would need a motion to approve the final plat.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Todd, second by Dan. Now that the motion is made, council, you can still discuss. I guess to stay consistent, now that the motion's made, I will offer public opinion again. Benny, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kate Smith, Tukin. Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Number,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 4.3 ordinance 962, rezoning the property entitled the Northland subdivision in Anamosa, Iowa from A1 agriculture to 8-R1 residential single family, C-2 arterial commercial, and M-1 light industrial.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Todd. Council discussion. Public comment. Penny, please.
Kate Smith, Tukin. Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Number,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve rezoning carried. There's a second phase to this, possible waiver of second and third readings. Are you making a motion, Kay? We have a motion by Kay to waive,
Second.
second by Todd. Council discussion.
Is this something that we should maybe wait one more meeting before we waived any readings of this, just to give somebody an additional time frame for any comment?
I would recommend not passing the waiving of the readings tonight. I would be in agreement with Rich just to give it at least one more meeting, 2 weeks, so that additional public can offer input. Now, granted, this is an agenda item. It's been posted. They very well could have been here. I don't think it's a good habit to get into to waive seconds and third readings on rezoning and plating.
And I would say, along with that, it's entirely the council's decision. But just so the council is aware, this has also been through a public hearing at the planning and zoning level. So we've had, that out in the public there as well. So just, again, either way, but so the council knows the process involved.
Is there any factors that would need to rapidly advance this?
Not necessarily, no. I guess I would defer. It's sometimes difficult to understand what may be controversial is probably not a good word, but want to be more debated than others. This particular situation, I don't know that would be the case. This was a bit odd. I have not personally dealt with this before, but generally what happens once a property is annexed into the community, all of this is taken care of way before this. So is a little odd that we've annexed it in and it's annexed in as agriculture, and now we just gotta play that catch-up game, so.
Any further comment from council? Any public comment? So there is a motion to waive the second and third. A yes vote, obviously would advance the waiving. A no vote would be in opposition to that. Penny, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Tukin. Weimer,
No.
Crump,
No.
Gumbert,
No.
Dan Smith,
No.
Kay Smith,
The motion died as for lack of majority. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 postponed items. 6.1 ordinance 961. An ordinance repealing ordinance 953 pertaining to the vacant building permit and inspection process. First reading.
I've included the old ordinance 953 in here. The ordinance 961, of course, is to repeal this entire ordinance. Yes, in its entirety. So at this time, there's no plan to replace it. The general consensus sounded at the last meeting was we may want to look at some other options and not work with this framework. So we figured we'd just get this one off the books first and then proceed.
Ordinance 953, when was that? When did that take effect?
That would be 2020, I think, is when we first passed it.
So I agree something probably should be done with that ordinance, but just putting it out there, we've got ordinances that we sometimes keep bumping up against that we pass them and then we don't enforce them. And it's kind of spinning wheels when we sit here and are going back and repealing ordinances. And the reason being that there's been inactivity or they're not being enforced. And moving forward, whatever we do with this or other ordinances, I think that we need to be better at consistently enforcing them. I also think that the spirit behind this particular ordinance was probably a well-placed spirit, but implementation apparently didn't go so well.
No, this is separate from that. Most of those nuisance ordinances are still in effect. Yeah, this is different from that. Yes, of those vacant properties.
So I believe Todd had touched on very strong points with in reference to this ordinance about enforcement. I do also believe when it was, constructed, it was in good faith. It had value added. But the enforcement and, we are now hearing how other communities are up against some serious financial constraints with pursuing these. Anamosa does not have the availability of the labor hours that would take to really put this ordinance into effect. So it may be a good time to dissolve the ordinance and look to future how we can create an ordinance that's more suited, more user-friendly for the owner, the property owners, the building owners, and getting tenants in there.
Well, I'll make a motion to repeal ordinance 953.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Brooke. Public comment, or excuse me, any further council discussion? Is there any public comment? Penny, please.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kay Smith, Tukin,
Motion to repeal the ordinance carried with 5 favorable votes and 1 vote opposing. There is a second phase, possible waiver of second and third readings.
Well, like the previous one, I'm not in favor of waiving those 2 readings at this time.
I think that would be beneficial.
Do we need to have a motion, just have the vote?
We already voted to approve the ordinance. If there is no motion at all, we would not be waiving, or there would be nothing to waive the second, third reading. It would just die for a lack of a motion. I'll ask, do we entertain a motion to waive second and third readings? Hearing none, move forward. 7.0 council action items. 7.1 project status update, HR Green Third Street Sidewalk Project and Dillon Military Bridge only.
Good evening, Melissa Clow with HR Green. Given the number of comments that we had at the last meeting regarding these 2 projects, I wanted to get back in front of you and provide additional information. I'll start with the Third Street sidewalk. Included in your packets are the most recent concept drawings. There are markups and comments that have been provided based on feedback and coordination with our transportation team as we've looked at that design. A typical roadway section has been included. There was a question about a buffered bike lane, so I did provide information there. It would be possible to provide an 18-inch buffer from between vehicular traffic and the bike traffic. Also included were some links to different publications that have information about buffered bike lanes, as well as the DOT information on the 4 to 3 lane conversion. So given this information, were there any additional questions about that at this time? So with that project, I'll be working with Jeremiah as we move forward and move into final design. And then that's where we would have the ability to come present either to council or at a public meeting to further discuss the 3-lane conversion and have project appropriate sections and additional information. So. The one thing to note with that 4 to 3-lane conversion, is it kind of hits on all the requests that we heard from the city as well as residents, that it creates a modal corridor. The conversions improve safety and it lowers speeds through corridors. So.
With the 4 to 3-lane conversion, would it be the plan of HR Green to have like a public informational
Yes.
session?
Yep. Yes,
Where
it
you
would
could
be.
offer renderings and factual.
Yep. That's what our plan going forward is. I wanted to get this in front of council because there were a number of questions last week about it, and just provide everyone that information as we continue to move forward at this point. So,
Thank you.
the second topic is the Dillon Military Bridge. There are a lot of questions on that. We were asked to verify timeframes for both options as far as rehabilitation and relocation. As I note here, our current scope includes preparing conceptual plans for the relocation option within 4 weeks of concurrence with the city on a preferred option. So we're still in that gray area on what that preferred option would be. It's estimated to take an additional 8 weeks to take the plans from conceptual design to final. However, as I've noted, there are a lot of other pieces that need to fall into place and make that happen. So I've listed all the items for final design that we would need to move forward with that. The biggest unknown is permitting. We anticipate needing a Section 106 agreement from SHPO and possibly a 408 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So researching those permits is included in the conceptual phase. So the next question was whether it was possible to add a pedestrian access to the existing Elm Street Bridge. It is not possible to add to the existing bridge, and we recommend that the new pedestrian bridge be constructed adjacent to the existing. Our initial concept did show a new pedestrian bridge immediately adjacent to the Elm Street Bridge, but it would be preferred to have it at least 20 feet away to provide space for inspections and maintenance on both structures. And then not knowing Elm Street Bridge, what its timeline would be, and if that would need replacement before a new pedestrian bridge. So that is where those two sections come into play. Are there additional funding options available? I spent time last week looking into this, and it's going to take more research and coordination with local, state, and federal organizations to develop a funding package. I did list a number of resources here. I've reached out to all of them, and it really comes down to when permit applications are due, whether either rehabilitation or relocation fits that permit definition and what the grant is for. So that is still open-ended, but we do believe there are funding options out there that would be available. The biggest question is whether or not there are historic requirements for the relocation of this bridge. This past week, I spoke to the State Historic Preservation Office as well as the Iowa State Historic Society. And they confirmed with me on Friday morning after I wrote this memo that because the bridge is linked to the Wapsipinicon State Park, that it is on the list of registered historic structures. So that in itself provides other issues to discuss if we decide to relocate it. The National Park Service would have to evaluate any proposed move and approve it before it happens. So,
Would there also be any historic value to it being part of the Dillon Borough?
that I don't know.
I think that's
So-
something to look into.
Okay.
When you got this confirmation on Friday, did they provide that information from the Historical Society? You mentioned that because it's part of the state park,
Right.
that it is part of the National Historic Registry?
Yes. The way they stated it was, since the bridge is a contributing resource to a listed historic district, that does make it a part of that.
Was that something that was sent to you in writing, or was that over the phone?
It was in writing.
Could you forward that on to that particular exchange on to Jeremiah, please?
I think I forwarded that to you earlier today.
Yeah, do believe I
So-
got that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So in addition, I did not hear back from them, but to kind of start the discussion, I sent an email to the DNR. I also copied Jeremiah on that, asking them, since they are listed, what experience they have working with different funding sources for preservation projects. Also asked if they would be interested in participating, as this bridge does touch down on one side of the state park. So I will be sharing, I copied Jeremiah on it, so he will be seeing responses. Any additional questions about that?
It certainly sounds like you already are, but any additional findings in relationship to this bridge, please forward those to Jeremiah.
Yep,
Thanks.
I will do so. So, and then I just have the other information here about consultant costs. Those are very high level estimates at this point. It depends on what we do and then the permitting and everything else that's involved. So, I talked to the Jones County Historical Commission, and they are currently working to find information on how the Hale Bridge funding occurred as well. And then, as I noted, I contacted the DNR about potential participation. So a lot of answers and a lot more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this, because it's very appreciated.
Thank you. Council, did you have any other questions or direction for HR? 7.2, resolution 2024-45, amending the deadline for the consideration of bids and setting the award date for the flow equalization improvement project.
There's not much to note on this one. Snyder just reached out and indicated that they had been contacted by a few potential bidders. They had requested or indicated that they may get some better bids if we just extend that a bit. So we're keeping the public hearing at the same date and time. just extending out the deadline for consideration, as well as the award date.
Make the motion to amend deadline.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Todd. Council discussion. Public comment? Benny?
Tukin? Yes. Kay Smith? Dan Smith?
Yes.
Albert?
Yes.
Crump?
Yes.
Weimer?
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 7.3, resolution 2024-46. Approving the salary change request submitted by the Assistant Streets Department Superintendent due to satisfying probationary requirements.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Teresa. Council discussion. Public comment. Betty?
Kay Smith? Dan Smith?
Yes.
Albert?
Yes.
Crump?
Yes.
Weimer?
Yes.
Tukin?
Motion to approve carried. 7.4, resolution 2024-47. Setting the date for the public hearing to approve the rezoning request for the Cuba subdivision and the final plat of the Cuba subdivision, second edition.
Again, this one, the public hearing is scheduled on this resolution for the next council meeting. We will be meeting Planning and Zoning Commission tomorrow to get this looked at. It has been in front of them a few times, as well as the council, just
watch where they're going. And there's also no sidewalks in that area. You probably know that, Kay. And I did observe people walking to and from the high school, and I think that will also keep those walkers safe as well.
Do you feel like there should be a stop sign at the next block up?
at Main Street.
Yeah,
I don't think that there is as much need there, only because if we place the stop sign on McNamara at Macokota, they'll have to stop there and they'll only have a block before they need to turn, because then it ends in a cul-de-sac.
Right.
I think just these two, if this doesn't fix it, then I may ask to put another stop sign on the agenda, but I think this is the minimum that we can do. I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
But we will keep an eye on it after the placement to see how things are going.
If we approve this, would it be possible, because we are dealing with younger drivers, would it be possible to put some kind of an announcement or something, coordinate with the school district, particularly at the high school, to maybe alert our younger drivers that these stop signs are going to be placed there, since they're already used to not having stop signs, that maybe we should draw some attention to it as we're rolling it out, as opposed to just putting it out?
I don't think that's a bad idea. And the superintendent's here, so.
Okay.
Well, Todd, to answer your question though, at the base of the hill
Right.
of going down to Dubuque and
Mhm.
so forth. I've come into town that way. That stop sign's been there forever. And I've watched high school kids go down 2x2, run that stop sign, one turn left and go up Dubuque Street and one go down Main Street. And they're just, they know they're there. They just don't observe them.
Right, but having been a former high school student years ago, it probably wouldn't hurt. Maybe we can address both. Actually, there's 3 different areas that we would have stop signs that you'd have. Remind them about the bottom of the hill. The one that Rich is talking about,
Byway, yeah.
the one coming off of Sadie Street, and then these new ones, just as a public service announcement, maybe.
A lot of high school administrators standing out at the bells, letting people know that the students.
And-
Right.
And Kay is right. That does happen also. When I've done my observations, I've seen the high school principal walk himself down onto McNamara. They were slowing down enough because they saw me, but he's also there monitoring traffic and monitoring the speeds as well. So
I just want to be sure that we don't, because that is that new McNamara Drive, that drive has always been there, but it's always been a dead end until we added that new section. And I just don't think it would hurt us to have the announcement through the school.
You indicated you didn't think the speeds were high. Do you believe there's adequate posting of the speed limit in that general vicinity? Or would it be necessary to post addition?
that I would have to see what there is for signage. I don't know off the top of my head. And I believe Kay, she says there isn't any. The speeds weren't as much of a concern to me as the uncontrolled intersection, and that's where the suggestions for the stop signs came in. Because it wasn't as much about how fast they were going, just that we had traffic coming from
Sure.
2 directions and there wasn't anything stopping either one.
You reviewing and making a decision would be suffice to everyone. Upon my suggestion, would you please send an official email to the superintendent and the principal about these stop signs being placed?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further council discussion? Any public comment?
Here again, Superintendent, Anamosa Community School District, 428 Holt Street in Anamosa. To just bring you up, we have been coordinating. I will add something to what Eric said. I've had students request it because they're noticing they want to come around and swing and come around and swing, and then somebody wants to go a block straight. And they're noticing that when you come out of the parking lot with the house there on the corner, it's a little bit hard for them to see each other. So I've actually had students stop me and say, can we get stop signs down there? So the students are also recognizing
Oh,
it.
good.
I will tell you though, they are still high school students, right? We try a lot. I applaud Chief Worley and staff, we've had people down there. I've sat down there, administrators sat down there, kids wave at me and understand. We've had a few get tickets, I believe. At least that's the word on the street at the high school. That in itself is a good thing, right? That travels fast, that we're paying attention. But I think it will help us. There's a lot of new going on down that way. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're gonna have to deal with as we develop that area down there. But this one, you know, I think is a good thing. We will continue to work with them. To answer your question, when Chief Worley and I talked about it, we started monitoring and that we pulled everybody in the auditorium and said this. Now, we'll do the same thing and say stop signs are the same as going too fast. If you blow the stop sign, we're gonna get a ticket. If we have an issue, right, we won't allow them to park in our parking. Right, if they don't want to follow the rules. You know, we have some recourse. They have to have parking stickers to park in the parking lot. But most of our kids are, you know, they're always late to get somewhere, I think. Right. And so, but we have been working, so I just didn't want you to think that this has all been a coordinated effort between all of us trying to make sure the kids are safe. And working with our student council to help make our kids understand. Thank you very much. Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate the collaborative effort there. Any other public comment? So the motion was made by Kay, second by Rich. Penny, would you conduct a roll vote?
Albert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Weimer, Weimer,
Yes.
Tukin.
Yeah.
Hey. Dan Smith,
Yes.
Sorry. Motion to approve carried. 7.6, resolution 2024-50. Amending and setting the date for the first regular city council meeting in November 2024.
I'll make a motion to move the meeting to Tuesday, November 12th.
Motion by Rich,
Second.
second by Todd. This is in observance of Veterans Day.
Yes.
Any council discussion? Public comment? Benny?
Crump,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Tukin.
Yes.
Kay Smith, Dan Smith,
Yes.
Albert,
Yes.
Motion to change council date carried. 7.7, discussion and possible action. Conservation easement for the historic Anamosa Public Library, former Anamosa Police Department located at 100 East First Street. Tom and Kim Durgan.
Kim Durgan, Anamosa property owner.
Tom Durgan, downtown property list.
So historic buildings are important to us. And our goal is to save those significant buildings that we own that have gone in disrepair or at risk for being torn down. We're here tonight to discuss the original Anamosa Library building. I don't think anybody's going to argue how significant that structure is for the community. The building's on the National Historic Registry. And a lot of folks in the area have a lot of good memories tied to it. In addition, the structure is just very. We've been working on repairing that structure over the last several months to basically save it. And Tom and I are not concerned about what happens to the property while we own it. However, we're thinking past our ownership and what could happen in the future. As a result, we've been working with our attorney to come up with the best option for how to maintain the structural integrity of the property, which you see in your packet there. You see an example of a conservation easement in perpetuity with oversight from the city of Anamosa. Today, we're looking for feedback on that example that's provided and also an agreement from the city for future inclusion of that conservation easement in perpetuity on the deed if the property changes ownership. The example you have is from the attorney for historic property that's in the city of Marion, where they have that easement. And the goal is to keep it simple, yet give the city the ability to hold any new owner accountable for keeping the structure intact, to limit its use, and the accountability for maintaining the exterior of the building. Again, it's an important structure for the city of Anamosa. So with that, you should have that example. I marked it up a little bit and made some notes on there on what we would want to include in that conservation easement. Again, the idea is to get feedback from you tonight. And then if you're open to having this conservation oversight in perpetuity, we would finalize it and put it in front of the council for approval ultimately. Do you have any feedback?
Kim, I think a vast majority of the residents in the community can certainly get behind your view on this to protect it for future generations through future ownership. Thank you for putting the ball in motion and bringing this before us.
Is there any specific verbiage in the conservation easement that you have concerns with at all that we need to consider in putting the final easement recommendation together?
Has Patrick reviewed any of this yet, or?
He is not. So essentially when Tom and Kim first brought this to me, I had to first of all look up some historic conservation easements. Wasn't really familiar with that process. It turns out there's a lot, and you can pretty much write them however you want, with a lot of detail or very little. The only thing I thought is we would, if the council had any thoughts or suggestions for property owners here to try to get that rolling in a certain direction, and we wanted to incorporate those responses into it. The only thing I received back was a verbal from the attorney saying we would just want to review the final copy, but nothing needs to be provided to them at this point. So for obvious budgetary reasons, I just didn't want to give it to them 3 times if we could just do it all at once.
Understand.
Council, you've seen the marked up version that Tom and Kim provided. Would it be safe to indicate to them that you find that acceptable through a motion here this evening? And then a more final version can be made available to the city attorney for their review. So that way all legal aspects are covered. I'm just saying that as that could be an option tonight.
I'd make a motion to accept that as a preliminary version.
Second.
Motion by Brooke, second by Todd. Council discussion?
I grew up next door to that house, or to that library. It's a fairly important part of my youth. I would agree that it is an important building, not only from the historical standpoint, but it is, I believe, a Carnegie library. It's not.
It's not, no, it resembles it, but it is not.
Well, I do think that the general idea behind the conservation easement is a good idea. I would like our city attorney to look it over just to make sure that we've covered every base that we need to cover, but overall, I think it's probably not a bad idea.
One thing I did want to point out also is we would want to include language about its use. Currently, the zoning is interesting. We would want it to not include multifamily housing or to become a hen house. So those things we would specifically call out in what it could and could not be used for going forward.
There'd have to be a lot of work done interior to it to become like an apartment building or something because of access points, I would assume.
Yeah, it's a blank canvas. Yeah, the important piece would be the exterior in making sure that the structural integrity is kept. The trim on the windows, if you haven't been in there for a while, it's never been painted. So there's different aspects that we would call out that we would take a photograph of. And those would be very specific in the easement. So it would be easy to hold whomever accountable in the future for making sure that that stays in place.
Keep it as simple as we can. Not science, but.
Tendency to do, yes. Any other comments or questions about it? We can put a final draft in front of the group here. You can get it in front of the attorney. And we'll come back.
Thanks for the work you've done so far.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we take the vote, is there any other additional public comment? Penny, please conduct a roll vote.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kate Smith, Tukin.
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to proceed with conservation easement carried. 7.8, review and approve temporary waiver of Anamosa personnel policy 9.06 for the Anamosa firefighters fall fundraiser on September 28th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Todd, second by Rich. Further council discussion? Any public comment? Any?
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Kate Smith, Tukin, Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried. 7.9, review and approve. Accept the resignation of Anamosa City Clerk Penny Load.
Reluctantly, I'll say yes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Reluctantly, I'll second.
Motion by Rich, second by Todd. Council discussion. My view, this is a personnel matter. I'm not going to take this for public comment. You can, you would like, you can possibly address this with Penny or City Administrator Jeremiah at a later time. I reluctantly take this to vote. Penny, please.
Kate Smith, Tukin, Weimer,
Sadly, yes.
Crump,
You know, I really want to say no to this. I'm gonna say yes.
Gumbert,
Well, I might as well just say no then. No.
Dan Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve resignation carried with 5 favorable votes and 1 opposed. 7.10, review and approve consent agenda pay request totaling $339,546.49. There are 10 sub-agenda items. I will read all 10. Council has the opportunity to make a motion that includes consent, which brings all 10 up for vote, or they can make a motion of any of the 10 items. Item A from HR Green in the amount of $112.50 for the sidewalk program. Item B from HR Green in the amount of $150 for civil plan review Northland subdivision. Item C from HR Green in the amount of $16,150 $499.32 for the Dillon Military Bridge Project. Item D from HR Green in the amount of $1,860 for engineering services master service agreement. Item E from HR Green in the amount of $5,026.87 for water department GIS services. Item F from HR Green in the amount of $968 for wastewater department GIS services. Item G from HR Green in the amount of $88 for planning and zoning GIS services. Item H from Martin Garner Architecture in the amount of $3,042 for phase 2 of the downtown revitalization project. Item I from Origin Design in the amount of $812.25 for the Stallion Creek Waterway Improvement Project. Item J from Peak Construction in the amount of $310,987.55 for phase 2 of the downtown revitalization project.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Rich, second by Kay. Council, you have the opportunity to discuss all 10 items that were within the consent motion. Jeremiah, were any of these work order related outside of this initial scope of any of the projects?
Not that I know of. The obvious large one here, Peak Construction. We'll need to do a draw on that one shortly, but that was for the downtown facade project.
Council, any comments? Is there any public comment on the agenda items? Benny, please.
Weimer,
Yes.
Tukin.
Yes.
Kay Smith. Dan Smith,
Yes.
Gumbert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve consent carried. 8.0 City Administrators Report.
I have nothing tonight.
Council, you have any questions or direction for Jeremiah? 9.0 Mayor and Council Reports. 9.1 Mayor's Report. I have none this evening as well. 9.2 Council Reports.
I had my monthly EMS meeting last Thursday with law enforcement and Brenda Leonard. The one thing that I will just pass on, there is a notice of funds availability hazard mitigation grant program. Basically, Brenda asked me to get this to, I'm guessing Jeremiah, but it will impact our water and wastewater people, I think, the most. This is a notice of intent has been opened for hazard mitigation grants from this year's presidential declarations. What this basically says is that there were 3 catastrophic events that were declared FEMA disasters. So there's some funding available under the hazard mitigation grant program. One was from the storms and tornadoes between April 26th and 27th this year. There was also another set of storms, tornadoes, and flooding between May 20th and May 31st. And the third event was, again, severe storms, flooding, straight line wind, and tornadoes occurring in the state from the 20th of May to May 31st. What's important for us to note is that the state is accepting notices of interest for those eligible hazard mitigation project types that would reduce or eliminate losses from future natural disasters, including but not limited to, and Brenda thought that perhaps where we might qualify, she didn't guarantee, but that under priority number 1, category A is property acquisition, elevation, electric utility hardening, detention basins, and warning sirens. There's also a priority 2 that talks about elevating or protecting wastewater lift stations and backup generators. I will give this information to Jeremiah, but it may be something because of some of the projects we have going on that there may be something available here. There's an application process, but it is a grant. It is not necessarily a loan, and there are percentages that there's a cost share percentage for each of these potentially, but might be something, Steve, you're
I forward that on to Snyder
perfect.
already,
Then,
so that way they knew to see if it would help with the EQ basin.
perfect. That's all I wanted to bring it up for. I just didn't know who all got the notice, so thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? 10.0 public comment for items not on the agenda.
Steve Agnes, Utility Superintendent. This spring, Robert and I received an email from the Water Environment Foundation. Had a questionnaire, about 20 questions. Filled it out, and then at the end, if you were to be lucky enough, you had a couple, 3 options. We put down a sampler. So about 3 weeks ago, we received a brand new $9,500 wastewater sampler free of charge for the city of Anamosa because we filled out the survey. So I just thought I'd let the council know. So
Well done.
John Dirks, Anamosa, Iowa, 105 East Fifth Street. Back in 1976, I redecked that bridge down there. We repainted it, sandblasted it, and repainted it and everything. And the way I understand now, there's cracks and pins down there, but when they found the cracks, they had to scrape the paint off. If they had to scrape paint off, that means them pins was cracked clear back when we redecked it. Now, the only thing that I can see that's actually really wrong with that is the abutment on that. So otherwise, the bridge, it had traffic on it with them cracked pins for 50 years. So is it serious? The abutment is serious. That I will agree. And with a little human ingenuity and resources, I think that we can fix that. And the handrail on there, the chain link fence, the reason that is on there is because during high water, we take it, one side goes up and one side goes down. So when the water goes over the bridge, it does not catch trash and tear the bridge down. That bridge has withstood floods. It's withstood green trees coming down, hitting it, and it is still there. So what do we do? No comments?
Well, John, under public comment, it is advised that council does not engage as there can be no action taken.
Okay, well, you know where I stand.
Any other public comment? 11.0 adjournment. This evening's meeting is adjourned. Thanks for being in attendance.